Good evening, my good friends and family. I hope that you've had a great Sunday. I know I have. Not that long ago, I was able to study with someone and baptize them into Christ. And so today has just been an absolutely wonderful Sunday, and I'm extremely thankful for that. You know, our reading of Genesis chapter 43 through 45 yesterday, and today's reading of 46 and 47 is going to be summed up in this devotional thought tonight. Last night we had our teacher appreciation banquet at the North Heights Church of Christ, and I just never got the chance to get a video done and was just super busy with that event, and so nothing was posted. So I just wanted to go ahead and just, put it all together in tonight to keep us on track. So here we are tonight, and I hope that you were able to read those chapters. If not, pause the video, go back and read it, and then come back and watch it later on. You know, Genesis chapter 43 is just really all about how the famine in the land continues and how the grain that Joseph's brothers brought back to their father eventually just ran out, and how they had to really travel back to Egypt to get more. And Israel was somewhat reluctant to let his youngest son Benjamin go, but he went ahead and allowed it. And before the brothers began their journey, they gathered twice as much money as the last time, in case its return to their sacks was an oversight. You remember when they were leaving Egypt the last time, they noticed that they had all their money returned to them. They got a really good deal on that food. And so they packed up more money than what they needed. They packed fruits and spices and to be able to give to Joseph as a gift. Now you have to remember, though, that they don't know that that's their brother. And so when the brothers arrived in Egypt, they stood again before Joseph, and he welcomes them. But they don't realize that that is their brother Joseph. And as he is busy with his public duties and taking care of the things that he was in charge of, he puts a confidential servant in charge of his brothers and to take care of them until he was able to see them later on. And he told them he'll arrive with them later and eat with them. And when the men entered the house, they were afraid, and they spoke to the servant, explaining that the money that they had used to buy food the last time was found in their sacks all over again. And he told them, he said, be quiet, just don't worry about that. That perhaps the money that they have was just a blessing from God, and that's not something that they need to concern themselves with. He then led them into the house where they prepared their gift for Joseph. And he greeted them. Joseph greeted them, and he asked about Benjamin. If you have to go back and remember that Benjamin is from Rachel, just in the same way that Joseph was from Rachel. And he asked also about the health of their father. And after they feasted together, Joseph ordered his servants to fill his brother's sacks with food and to put money that they had brought back into the sacks as well. And Joseph also ordered his servant to put a silver cup into Benjamin's sack. And after they left the city, they had gone for a short distance. Joseph ordered his steward to follow and overtake them. And when he caught up with the party and with everybody, he asked them why they had decided to steal from Joseph. When the steward overtook Joseph's brothers, he did as he had been ordered and accused them of theft. And the brothers replied that they had not stolen anything, and pointed out that they had returned the money that they found in their sacks when they first came to Egypt to buy food. And they declared that whoever the cup was found with could be taken back to Egypt as a slave to Joseph. And so the steward agreed and searched all the sacks. They started with the oldest brother, and then finally when it gets right down to Benjamin's sack, they found it. And they returned to the city as quickly as possible. They brought him before Joseph. They brought everybody before Joseph, where Judah begins to plead with him, asking for mercy and for Joseph to take him on as a slave instead. And Judah explained that Benjamin was the only remaining son of his father's beloved wife, Rachel. Moreover, he told Joseph that if Benjamin did not go back home, their father would die of grief. And he begged Joseph to let Benjamin go home, even if it meant that he was going to serve Joseph himself. In chapter 45, Joseph reveals his identity finally to his brothers. And upon seeing Judah begged to switch places with Benjamin, Joseph revealed his identity to his brothers. He saw that compassion that his brothers had, and he says, okay, guys, listen, I'm Joseph. He told them not to fear or be angry with themselves for what they had done to him, because it was God that sent him to Egypt. See, even Joseph realized it was God's providence to preserve the life of his family. See, that's the reason. The famine came, and Joseph was able to take care of his family. Eventually, Pharaoh heard of the news of Joseph's family and invited them to bring them all into his own household in Egypt. And he provided wagons to bring the women and the children and to carry Joseph's father in his old age. Before his brothers returned home to Israel, Joseph gave them many gifts and items of clothing. Benjamin, the only brother Joseph shared a mother with, received just a few more gifts than any of his other brothers. Isn't that interesting? When they returned to Canaan, Israel was astounded to learn that Joseph was still alive. And when the wagons arrived to take him into Egypt, he cried out joyfully and professed his wish to see his lost son again before he died. How beautiful. In chapter 46, we read that after learning that his son was alive, Jacob journeyed to Beersheba, where he offered several sacrifices to God. And one night, God came to him in a vision and ordered him to move to Egypt, where he would make a great nation of his descendants. Jacob's sons carried their father and their children in wagons which had been sent by Pharaoh, and they took all of their livestock and their belongings as they intended to resettle in the area of Egypt called Goshen. Jacob was accompanied by all of his sons and his daughters and grandsons and his granddaughters. Jacob sent Judah ahead to inform Joseph that they were coming from the direction of the land of Goshen. And when he heard the news, Joseph got into his chariot and went to meet his family. And when they met his father, they both cried for a long time out of great happiness. Joseph told them that he would introduce them to Pharaoh and instructed them to say that they were all shepherds. In chapter 47, when Joseph learned of the arrival of his family, he hurried out to meet them, and he introduced 5 of his brethren to Pharaoh, who questioned them about their purpose in coming and their needs during that stay. And he told Pharaoh that they were shepherds and requested to dwell in the land of Goshen to be able to tend their flocks. Pharaoh grants this request and petitions them to take charge of his cattle as well. And afterwards, Joseph brought his father to present him to Pharaoh. And upon meeting the king, Jacob gives his blessing. Pharaoh questioned him about his age, to which Jacob responded that he was 130 years old. And after blessing Pharaoh for the final time, Jacob returned to the rest of his family in Goshen, where Joseph provided them with enough food to live well on. During the years that Jacob and his family were established in Goshen, the 7-year famine was still upon Egypt, and the people exhausted their financial reserves in purchasing grain, and many began to suffer greatly. As Pharaoh's trusted representative, the people of Egypt and Canaan came to Joseph asking for relief. Joseph bartered with the people, offering to give them bread and grain in exchange for their livestock. The Egyptians agreed, and Joseph greatly increased the livestock and the herds of Pharaoh. The following year, the people again sought out Joseph as the famine continued in its course. Having already sold their livestock the year before and having no money, they asked Joseph to purchase their lands and allow the people to live in subjection to Pharaoh as payment. Joseph agreed to their request, and the people's lands, crops, and lives became properties of Pharaoh. That may come back to bite them. There are 3 things that I think are important to think about from this reading. First of all, family is everything. Stay with your family, love your family, and take care of your family, no matter what. The second thing to think about is this: God's providence is working in the lives of God's people, Israel. And just as much as God worked in their lives, God can work in your lives too and bless your family. The third thing is this: even though when it seems like everything is going great for the people of Israel, things take a terrible turn and the people will suffer. But He has a plan, and that plan will be carried out. And guess what? God has a plan for you too. If you're going through those tough times, trust in Him no matter what is going on in your life. For Monday, read the rest of the book of Genesis. Don't worry, that's only about 3 more chapters. You can do it. I love you, and good night.